You know, if you remember big games and stuff like that, and just so we get a record of this period of time. Okay?
Where do you go here? So there's nobody in the early. That's why we need somebody back in '86.
Eric Peterson said he was
Yeah, he's a Mohawk man.
Johnny's
Who's
gone.
80 year what? 89, 90, 91? Justin, when did you graduate? 90. Huh? 88? 88?
98.
98, so you're that old.
What year did you get? Still working on it.
86. The first year, that was Mortel and Rivard and all those guys. Andrew Hansen, Eric Peterson, Billy Peterson. Mike, when did you graduate, what year?
90.
90, so you played 89.
Yep, he'd be a good one.
That's the earliest we got? Huh?
As a freshman.
Come on over here, Mike. See, I'm not going to see by myself.
We called a lot of people, and they're either doing something with their kids, they're working. When we first started, the people we called, most of them are gone. They're not here anymore. They died.
Here, I thought we were going to sit over there.
Would you like to sit down?
Well, I don't know. That's fine. You tell us. You go ahead, Harry. You're the narrator.
All right. Ready?
You're in.
We want to welcome everybody here today for our fourth session of Somerset football. In our last session, we covered 1970 to 85. There were some very good athletes and some successful years, but attitudes were changing and the commitment was always not there. One year the season started with 22 players, as other events were more important in scheduling it for the same time as the start of football. That year we ended up with 45 players, but we started with 22. Gone fishing. The team practiced and played at Village Park. One year the village dumped the street snow on the field, causing many headaches for the girls' softball. Pieces of glass, beer cans showed up in the spring. It was a mess. The middle of the field used to sink, and in the rain, in times of heavy rain, you had a mud hole. And that was a big problem. No grass, because all the little kids played down there every day at recess time, and then we played there on Friday nights. The teams practiced and played at Village Park. One year, with the expansion of Little League, the baseball diamond was converted at one end into a lime rock infield, and we played on that. Then a little while later, they put another infield on the other end. Well, now it was impossible to play there anymore, so we moved our practice up here to the high school. And at that time, before I let the kids have water, they had to bring a helmet of rocks. The field was terrible. There was no grass, it was just dirt, and we tried to fill a runoff ditch with those rocks. The track is surfaced with a gray rock and a basalt, and it was always wet. The previous AD scheduled early meets, and you can imagine we never had any, but he did schedule some. Mr. Cook was the AD at that time, and he was the head coach in football, wrestling, track, all because, in addition to being AD, because there was nobody coaching on staff. There were 4 coaches on staff, and all the others were community members. This is the situation Mr. Nemec came into when he was hired to be the head coach in 1986. He came to Somerset from Glenwood City and the state championship team there. As AD, he took on a great responsibility to change things for the better here at Somerset. First, he was able to get people hired who were good coaches as well as good teachers, putting together a great staff that has been together for many years. His pride and joy over the years included his Glenwood years has been a great playing field. And thanks to the efforts, we have one of the best, if not the best, grass field in western Wisconsin. He has brought the community together in support of the program, raising funds for the program, and as the greatest achievement of all is getting volunteers. By looking at the trophy case, we can see how successful the athletic program has become. So welcome to Mr. Nemec.
Mr. Seibel, you want to come up here too? You're part of this. Big part of it.
Yeah.
As Mr. Rivard said, it's kind of hard to get people to come back, and I think it would be really hard to get people back from the early and mid-'80s. Bob's been here how many years? 32. 32 years as a coach. He's a former player. He's never left Somerset. Well, he did leave Somerset for a couple months to go to Hamlin. I think that's a 2-year school over there in the cities. 2-year school, took him 3. But anyways, I came here in 1986, like Mr. Rivard said. The year prior to that, I think they had about 35 or 40 kids out for football. And there were about 15 or 16 or 18 kids returning from that team. There wasn't much of a number, it wasn't much football back in the 80s. And it's hard for some of the people to understand that because they weren't even around back then, but some of these younger kids. But back in the 80s, to be an athlete, to be involved in sports in Somerset, you were looked upon differently. You were looked upon respectfully, or you were shunned, you were ridiculed. If you're a Spartan, you sucked. I mean, that was what we saw most commonly written around the school. Attitude was a lot different, you know, and the first thing we had to do, and Mr. Seibel, Mr. Larson was in on that, a couple years later, but we had to start working on changing attitudes. I remember the first couple of practices I had here, I don't know, maybe the third or fourth day, one of the football players came up to me and he said, now you gotta remember, I came from a farming community. I moved to, I thought, a farming community, but if you didn't work on Schottler's farm, you weren't a farmer, because that was it. You know, there wasn't a lot of farms over here anymore, not like where I came from in Glenwood City. So I came with a different work ethic. And of course, over there we had a lot of success. Things were going really well, and we year after year after year rolling off some great teams and some great records. And we came over here, and it was a big adjustment for me. Okay, coming off a great team and up with a young team. We were state champs, like Harry said, with a lot of young kids coming back. And I came over here, and the work ethic was a little bit different. I think we were about 3 or 4 days, and I'll still never forget. And I see him a lot here at Peterson. He played football for us, was a good player for us. He has a son that's playing football now. That's a pretty good athlete. And I remember, I'll never forget in all the years, one of the most vivid memories I have is him coming up to me and asking me, I don't know if you were there, Bob, and why do we have to run so much? Why do we have to do all this conditioning? Why can't we just go out there and play? Why do we have to do this? You know, when I first got here, our attitude wasn't about going in to win a game. We didn't go up to Grantsburg, we didn't go we went to a game with the idea, let's keep it close in the fourth quarter, and then maybe something good will happen. And we did. I think we were 3-6 that year, and I think we lost Spring Valley in overtime. We lost Grantsburg in overtime, I think one other one, St. Clair Falls or somebody.
A lot of quick kick.
Well, we mastered
A lot of fun on third down.
That's not funny, Mr. Simon.
No, that's the truth. Not necessarily funny, but.
Well, when you sit back on the first two plays, you can't get any yardage, and then you go from 1st and 10 to 3rd and 15 or 20 or 30. Well, you gotta be able to do something. But we were pretty good quick kickers. We tried no play. We only do that 3 times a half, David.
That still lives. No play still lives.
You know, but it was coming in, and it took a couple years. And I think, you know, just visited with one of the players this morning back in the late 80s, Chad Schmidt. He said, you know, I was in that group, you know, that we started. My first year we were 1-8. And I'll never forget a guy coach telling me, he says, you know, you deserve to be 0-9. I said, that'll never happen. He said, you think you're that good? I said, no. I'll quit when I'm 0-8. I said, I'll never do that. I said, that'll never happen, because that guy was 0-9. But anyways, you know, about, what year did that be with Chad, you guys?
87.
87, we started, 88, 88, we were 1-8, and then we started rolling things pretty good. We had a pretty good run there for a while. Mike was one of our ball players. Mike Peterson was a tremendous athlete. You know, the thing that was kind of hard for me to sit back and see kids like Mike and Garrett Peterson and you know, a number of these kids. You know, we didn't have much of a weight room. I mean, weightlifting wasn't an issue. You know, football, other than coming out and playing, I think a lot of kids thought that when we ran a football program, any athletic team basically, but especially football, was kind of intramural. You know, you talk to kids, there'd be a big game, Packers, Vikings playing that weekend. Kids didn't know, they didn't care, they didn't watch TV on Sundays, it didn't matter. They came to practice and they put in what they had to put in to get out of it. And I don't mean to get good things out of it, just to get in and get out, you know. Some kids played because their parents played. Years ago, they had a rich tradition here for a spell. And, you know, some kids, I think, you know, I remember a parent come up to me one time saying, why hasn't Chad ever played? Why don't you play Chad? I said, boy, I'd sure like to, but we asked him to go in. And I said, he won't go in. He doesn't want to. And my question is, why is he here? We don't need kids to be here just to be here. We got kids that want to be here. But, you know, we had a lot to do, I think, with changing attitudes and changing the thoughts. And once we started having a little bit of success, a lot easier to run a couple of gas hits. When you're not having success and you ask kids to run 212 yards across the field, they don't understand why. It doesn't make sense to them. But I don't know.
Pardon me?
What's your thoughts?
I don't know, the highlights to me, and I'm just gonna think about the highlights, is the first conference championship in, was it 90 or 91 that we won, and it was 30 years in between, and coming back from Frederick, I believe, and the community support, that was that was kind of when things started to, the snowball started to go, you know, for what it's now rolling into 30-some years later. Mr. Nemec was a big part of it. Personally, I played for Coach Rivard. Was lucky enough when I was senior, right when I graduated, ran into Mr. Rivard and he goes, "What are you doing this fall? Would you like to coach?" I was like, "Yeah, awesome." And then it just ended up being able to do it, done it for 32 years. And what Coach Nemec started, it just snowballed and went into what it's become today. So it's been a lot of fun for me. Looking around, seeing the faces, that's why I coach. That's why I do it. I do it because of the people, and doing it in Somerset has been so much fun. The history of it, this is an awesome thing for people to put down and just talk about. It's gone so far as from quick kick to now it's no kick. We don't kick. 10 punts last year. It's all been because of people like that are in the room now and hard work and dedication.
We got some kids, a couple of here on that. I think 91 was the first championship. 90 was the first playoff team, and we lost a flip that year to, we beat Webster on the field, but they beat us on the flip. But who's on that first 91 team? Come on up here. I know David, Bobby, weren't you in there? Yeah. 91, come on up here, you guys. If you're on that first championship. Like Mr. Seibel said, I think it was about 25 years. And I remember coming back in town and fire trucks met us all in the edge of town. And the cops were out there, and I wasn't sure if they welcome us back to town or wanted to have a couple of kids, talking to a couple of them on the bus. What's that?
You thought they were coming for me?
Well, we didn't think that. Harry, come on in here. Mike Peterson. Mike, like I said, was a tremendous athlete. And if we could have had him a couple years earlier and got him into the weight room. And when I first got here, we didn't have a weight room. We kind of took over half of the stage. Did you ever have a weight room there? Did you get in that area?
Yep.
Stage? Yep. We had a little area about 30 by 15 on the stage that we could use and put a couple things into it. But, you know, Mike, what are your thoughts right in the beginning? You were one of the youngest ones, the oldest ones we had here.
Yeah, I mean, as I reflect on my years in Somerset, my fondest memory of 7th and 8th grade football is we basically didn't win a game. And all of our team was kind of down and out, and nobody really wanted to play that high school football as they got older. And I just remember him announcing that we're getting a new coach in town from Glenwood City. He was kind of an all-star, took him to the state championship. So it really turned
Kind of?
it really turned the thoughts of our team around. As you know, like I said, is we had a lot of good athletes. You know, we were coached, but probably not coached as well as we would have liked to be. But we had a lot of good athletes, and we were real excited for Coach Nemec to come in town. And when he did, you seen him come in and make a lot of changes. I mean, as you look at the culture of Somerset football, there was a lot of things. He had a lot of work to do. You know, we didn't have a weight room. We didn't have a youth football program. We didn't have any of that. And, you know, as you look at the years through high school football, you've seen all this developed, and you've seen it kind of continue on even after Brad handed off the torch. But one of the biggest things is you look at Coach Nemec and what he did with football, and he basically surrounded himself with a real good staff. You know, he kept Coach Seibel, he brought on Coach Larson, and it really developed our team into something. And as we went and got better through our high school years, one of the biggest memories that I had was, I think it was in our senior year, we had finally made it to that winning level. We only had 2 losses on the year. I think Unity, Webster, and us all had 2 losses. And I think that to go into the playoffs that year, there was kind of some controversy. So I guess, if I remember correctly, there was envelopes that needed to be drawn to see who made it into the playoffs. And one of the plays that Coach Nemec always used to run was a belly right, belly left. And because he ran the belly left so much, he took the envelope on the left. And of course, it was not the right envelope. So that year we did not get to make it into the playoffs. I think we had 2 losses, 6-2 or 7-2, whatever it was. But that was one of the big memories. So our chance to go into the playoffs our senior year did not happen. But anyway, it was an excellent experience in Somerset High School football. And I'm actually looking forward to my kids coming through the program now. I was hoping to keep some of these coaches around just to coach my kids, but as we all get older in age, I don't know if that's going to be possible.
Look the other way, not this way. And also, if you just say your name and when you played and graduated and stuff, Dave?
My freshman year was '88, graduated in '92, I was on the
What's your
conference
name, Dave?
championship '91, David Rivard, everybody knows me around here. I was lucky enough my sophomore year to play with Mike, and he was pretty athlete, he was a lot of fun. That was probably one of my favorite years. My freshman year, we were terrible. That was the 1 and 8 year, we were terrible. We didn't have very many seniors on that class at all. I think we had Joel Inez and Scott Cloud, and that was about it. And then a lot of guys in Mike's class, we hadn't had much varsity experience. And the next year, we kind of put it all together, and we were playing really well, really well. And it was just a lot of fun. You had a lot of good athletes in your class, Mike, a lot of fun guys to play with. And I had a lot of great experiences here, and I was lucky enough to get to coach here also. And that's about all I got.
How many championships, David? Just one?
One.
One?
Rode the coattails of another one.
Okay, there you go.
You
Bobby?
you talk quite a bit about that quick kit. Boy, I did a lot of them quick kicks.
Is that you?
We ran the wishbone offense, and I just remember on 3rd down, it's like, Coach, we got one more down to get a 1st down, and he's like, nope, let's do the quick kick.
It's a great play.
Got a defense coordinator like this guy.
This is a great play.
No one ever got onto it.
You used to say, Coach, we got one more down. Have you seen the last 2? Bobby Gunther?
Yeah, Bob Gunther, I played from 1991 to 1994. I think we were on 2 conference championships and playoff runs. Our junior year, I think, was our most successful year, and I remember Coach Nemec saying to the media that this is gonna be a rebuilding season, where we're gonna be very good. And I remember sitting down in the locker room with the seniors, Gary Rivard, and said, how do you feel about that? And we all agreed we were gonna show them, we were gonna prove them wrong, and we went on, we won conference. We weren't supposed to beat Osceola, we weren't supposed to beat St. Croix Falls, beat Osceola 16-0. And, so I don't know if that was a little bit of a reverse motivation, but.
Well, in all fairness, he said that every year.
Yeah.
And if you hear Bruce Larson, he says it every year. That is not new, so. I don't know what Harry said, but yeah, that's been around.
Well, the idea is real simply this, we're slow, no size,
Yeah.
very inexperienced, and if we can win a couple games, we'll be tickled to death. But you know what, at the end of the year, if you're 1 and 8, you don't have to make any excuses, read the paper. I told you that. If you're 8 and 1, well, we're good coaches, What can I say? You just don't, it was never a case of, but that was, just looking back, Coach Rivard stopped over the other day and wanted to get a few piece of information, and looking back at some of the old articles, my wife's got boxes and boxes of stuff. Now I said, a good time to let's go ahead and cook some marshmallows. Because after a while it just, but anyways, you look at every preseason, that's right, same thing, and you never make an excuse. It was never to get the kids upset, it was just kind of fool the other people. Let Osceola think differently, and let Grantsburg and St. Croix Falls and Unity, the big people up there, think differently, but thank God it didn't happen very often. Aaron?
Aaron Rivard. My memories of the '91 era, watching everybody, my friends, Rel and Scotty, and the offenses line up and got the linemen out. John Melvin, it's end around. I'm watching all my friends just getting, we're freshmen, watching them all get laid out left and right. And I'm out there all alone, just kind of looking around. Oh yeah, here comes John Melvin, Jeremy Gazda coming down in a little 140-pounder. Didn't stand a chance on that one.
6th grade? 140 pounds? Oh.
Who's 140, Aaron?
He said 140, I figured that must have been 6th grade.
Freshman year. And,
That's all I can count up to.
yeah, so just recapping on all that, just great experience growing up in Somerset.
I think one of the differences is from when we played to now is we had a couple kids that go at the buy-in that related to the coaching staff. I related to Mr. Seibel. He could have told me to chew on a truck tire, and I probably would have got and did it, just because you respected him so much. and he motivated you, and there was that relationship there. There was a few guys on the team that were like that. Now, that transition, I think you have 11 guys, the whole team that has that buy-in, that has that dedication, that coaching staff, and I think that all really started with Mr. Nemec and what it's transformed into now. It's just a kind of an automatic thing. That bar's been raised so high that, so those standards are, every year I think they're getting stronger and stronger.
I would agree with that completely, because when I was in 8th grade, we all met in that school up there for high school through 7th and 8th. There's some hallways we were afraid to walk down. Those seniors and
So were we,
juniors.
huh?
Yeah, I mean, they were some rough kids.
There was reason to be
There
scared.
was lots of rough kids, and they weren't athletic, they weren't, they didn't, but when you start instilling sports, it doesn't matter what you're into, I think it makes a kid better, along with academics. And a lot of that's come from Brad. A lot of it has come from him being here, and he's done great things here for us.
Justin, Freddie, who else we got? Scott, Garrett? Who else was there? Come on in, guys. I played up here. Sean, you're a little bit younger, weren't you? Yeah.
Oh, man.
Justin, you're the oldest one, huh? Oh, you're like Freddie. Freddie, now, you look at Freddie, you don't get fooled. You look at him today. When he played football, he's 109 pounds. Not 115 like today. Go ahead, Freddie.
No.
You come.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, to be your number one. Freddie Trautmiller, I had the opportunity to play with these guys as coaches from 1993 to 1996. Didn't get on to varsity till 1994, and I like what some of the guys said earlier is that you related with the coaches, and I really think that looking at Somerset athletics and organized sports is that it was our opportunity to really shine because you aspired to do something great because you had some great leaders that were paving the way. And when we got to school, I felt like the tradition, the momentum was moving, because I believe my sophomore year we made it to the playoffs. My freshman year I didn't play, but that's when like Gazdick and Melvin, those guys were there, made the playoffs that year. And then it was on special teams that Coach Bill Powers gave me my opportunity to start on varsity. And from that day forward, we just started building that team gel, with all of our guys. And we made the playoffs our sophomore year. We made the playoffs our junior year. And then our senior year, we made the playoffs too. And I agree with what Bobby Gunther said, is that you related with every coach. I mean, we would ride the bus, and it didn't matter if we were listening to the craziest music of the era to pump us up. Before every game, Coach Nemec would always stop, and we'd have to listen to Queen. We were the champions. It was all about programming, thinking to be the best all the time. And look at Coach Seibel, and I still remember this to this day. I had gotten a career-ending injury my senior year, and he gave a talk before he went to play.
You broke a finger, didn't you, or something?
Oh, you should have seen it. It was, hey, it's okay.
Career ending with a broken finger?
Oh, it was football anyway. That was brutal.
All right, go ahead.
But anyhow, he gave a talk, and I think all great leaders and great coaches have the ability to bring people together to go do something great. And he gave a talk that I'll remember to this day about heart power. It doesn't matter how big you are or how fast you are, but if you play with heart and you focus on your goals, you can go do something great. And our team at that time went and beat the 4-time defending state champion. I believe it was like 22-20 or 21-20. We beat Elk Mound, and that was awesome. And the principles that we learned from organized sports from these guys along the, in life, in our business today, the work ethic, the dedication, the, working with the team and pushing people up, it's something that you'll remember for the rest of your life. That's why I believe that organized sports, and especially the tradition and the success that the Somerset program has, is something to be proud of, something to be part of, and appreciate the opportunity to play for these guys.
Something Freddie talks about, there's some of the other kids that aren't here, but a memory that I really think about that really, a couple things really stick in my mind. Maybe my son will bring one of them up, but we used to use music. Somewhere I read music is a great motivation thing, great motivation tool. And I'll never forget, you had to be here. I'll never forget Mike McMartin, who was the football coach up at Osceola, was a great football coach, went from Richmond to Osceola, did great things up there. And he called me up one night in the middle of the week, right after we played him, and he said, I should be prosecuted. It's criminal what we do on that football line, on that field. We got John Melvin at tight end, that was about 6'3", 235, 240. Rusty Germain playing right next to him was about 6'4", 255, 260. These both kids went on and had great college careers. Next to them, we had, Dave, were you there?
Kevin.
Kevin.
I'm always the forgotten one.
Well, we had Price was in there, we had, were you the center, I think, maybe?
I was a guard my senior
Okay.
year for 2 years.
But we had these, I mean, that line was across the front was all 240 to 260, and they were just, I mean, they're trees walking around. And we used to do music. I remember we had a Sunday night practice because we had to get ready. The last game was going to be the big game, the championship game. And I don't know if any of the kids were part of this or not, but we went up in the weight room. Anybody remember this? Went up in that weight room? We played a song up there, shut the lights off. We played a song. You guys weren't there? Bob, you were there.
Yeah.
Okay. We played the
It wasn't
song.
Little Mermaid, was it?
No, Land Before Time.
Land Before Time.
Land Before
Oh,
Time.
yeah.
Land
That was
Before
a-
Time. We played that song. I sat down the bottom steps. We left the kids in there for a couple minutes, and we turned the lights. We left it dark for a few minutes after the song, and then we walked out the door, and coaches did, and we said, "You guys got anything to say? Take care of business." And we come down, and here comes Rusty Germain and John Melvin, and like David, you know, the cohesiveness the kids built. Here they're coming down, and you got a 6'4", 235-pound kid coming down with tears coming out of his eyes because of the impact of Land Before Time. Yeah, now we'll laugh about it and make a big joke about it, but we didn't back then. I think Dave Rivard might even had a tear or two in his eye, if I remember right. But I mean, that's the type of thing that happened. Now Freddie didn't go on and say, but you know, and David played on the first championship team that was undefeated, and cost me a haircut, and I haven't forgotten that. And then Freddie played on a team. We not only won the conference that year, and back years ago, it was tough to get into playoffs. They took 1 or 2 teams from a conference. It hasn't expanded as much, you know. At one point, they took 4 teams in each division across the state. But anyways, when Freddie and those kids were seniors, we got in the playoffs, and like he said, we'll never figure this out. We ended up playing, we're 9-0, playing a 9-0 Fall Creek up here in the first round of the playoffs, and 2 5 and 4 teams were playing over in Elk Mountain. We don't know how that happened, but got through that game. I think you got hurt in practice that weekend.
Saturday
Yeah, hurt.
before.
Last play. How many people ever said, one more play?
Yeah. We had
There were one more play, and there goes Freddie.
One more play is a bad idea.
And we get through, we play Fall Creek up on this field up here. Thank God we played them here. That's one thing that we started years ago, and it's just really, really magnified, is playing on this field. We didn't lose many games in the last few years, and we haven't lost many games up there now. But we played Fall Creek up here. They're the 3-time defending state champs, had a 45 or 50 game winning streak. And we got up on a 14-0. And then the next thing we knew, we were down 21-14. And we just kept at it. And it's too bad I thought Grant was going to be here because I had a good story about Grant Belisle. But anyways, like Fred says, we just pulled together. It was a great group of kids. That was really one of the first groups as a team that really lifted weights. I think we had 9 or 10 kids that could bench press 300 pounds. Freddie could with the plastic weights. But anyways, I mean, it was just a great team. We got beat that, we played that year, played Fall Creek, beat them here 22-21, scored a play late in the end of the game. Grant carried it in. I think we ran I don't know. Well, I don't know.
From Belly, right?
Belly, it wasn't Belly. We only had 2 plays. Drive right and left, or 4 plays. 4 plays. Drive right, drive left, belly right, belly left. And quick kick, 5. We didn't have a punter because we always quick kick. But anyways, Grant carried it in, and we scored right at the end of the game and beat them 22-21 for a great game. Great win. That year we went up. The next week played one of those 5 and 4 teams, was now 6 and 4. And I think it was 38-0 at halftime. And then we had Grant out there, and I told, you know,
One more play.
well, Mr. Seibel ran the defense, Mr. Larson was kind of running the offense, and he said, well, let's get those guys out, it's 38-0. He said, well, let's just go let's one more play. So we left Grant Belisle in for one more play,
Coach
our
Larson.
quarterback. Yeah, Coach
One more
Larson,
play.
yeah, one more play, so we bust his collarbone. But it was 38-0, anybody could have taken us through the rest of that game, even Mike Peterson, where he is. And we lost Grant, and then we go up the next week, and we have to play Hurley. Well, the WIAA says to us, they said, well, you know, we're having a hard time finding some place to get a game for you. You know, because Hurley is, between Hurley and Somerset, there's not a lot, and the only fields are really Spooner, Ladysmith, and Hayward. And he said, Ladysmith's field's terrible. And I said, we don't want to go there. And Spooner don't want to host, and Hayward will host, but it has to be on a Friday night. So there's one football game in the state of Wisconsin that Friday night, up in Hayward. We get up there, we get off the bus, we think it's a 2-hour trip. Driving that night, but it's about a 4-hour trip. And, we get there and we're rushed. We don't get the real pregame, but we're rushed. We get there, we go over to the field, we had about 6 inches of snow, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
And I get, well, Mick says, Mick Fox, our videotaper, will have this for the last 30 years. But anyways, we got quite a bit of snow. We get off the bus and we go out on the field. And I know this, if you came to Somerset, I don't care who was playing here, if there was a football game up on that field, that snow would have been shoveled off. If our ed class would have shoveled all day long, it'd have been shoveled. Well, we had outside boundaries, and we had every 10, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't enough.
Every 10-yard line. The rest was snow. And I remember, I knew the AD very well, and I knew the principal up there, the football coach, and I'll come up before the game. It looks pretty nice, doesn't it? I just looked at him, I said, well, all I'm going to tell you is this. If Hayward's playing on this field tonight, if this was Hayward playing, and this field would look like this for you playing here, then it looks great. If it'd be different, then, well, anyways, we're playing Hurley, and things started out pretty well. I think we started Grant for a little bit, didn't we?
No.
Oh, we started Danny Jokerson, and went back and started quarterback first, but now that's taking a halfback away. So when you move one to another, now you're screwing up with 2 positions. And Dan did okay for a while, and all of a sudden we kind of thought, well, we needed Grant to get in there, and Grant did a nice job. Considering, but we were ahead at one time, 14-0, and then it was 20-14, us. And then they scored a couple quick touchdowns. Now, I'll tell you one thing, I don't know much about defense, and I don't have to know much about defense, but I know if I ever coach defense, I would never have something called prevent defense. Because all it does to me is prevents you from winning. That's all it does.
But we did not have a prevent defense at the time. We were in straight man-to-man, and they ran a double reverse 83 yards out of their end zone.
And that's your fault.
Because we were in straight man-to-man. If that happened today, we would be in a safer D, and it would have been,
Well, they in
we
all
got their
fairness,
ball into trophy cases.
in all fairness, they had the defending state
No lie.
champion 4x100, and I think they were second or third in 4x2. All 4 of those kids that played from were back that year on that football field. The difference, we could pound them straight ahead, we just couldn't catch them on the outsides. You know, they were just so quick. But anyways, we ended up getting beat, I think, 26 to 20, but that team was 11-1 that year. We got beat in the state semifinals. It was a great game. It was a great season, and that was the only game we had all year. And Fall Creek in the playoffs, but during the season there wasn't any type of games or anything. Then we moved on from 95, and then Justin next one here, what, 90?
I played from 95 to 97.
Who are you?
What's that?
Who are you?
Oh, Justin Fatheree. My experience was a lot different than some of the guys that have spoken before me. I was a small guy, really small. I think freshman year I was being 5'5", 110 pounds, really small. And I remember first practice 2 days, we were in the chutes, and I was playing tight end, and I was at the end of the line. You have to come out and block the next guy, and Gunther was the guy I was going to have to move, and he was a senior. And I didn't shoot, and I'm like, oh shit. But he graciously let me back him off. But I didn't play your senior year. Like I said, I had confidence problems. I didn't think that I was a good athlete, and I wasn't. I was small and I was weak, and so I took that year off. And that my junior year, my friends talked me back into coming out, and I was still waffling. And then Bob talked to me, said you should come out and play. And from there, over the next 2 years, my confidence started to build up. And I could tell more stories about football and games, but that's what I remember and reflect on most, because that was life-changing for me, right? I mean, I carried that into college, and then I carried that into my life with my family and my employment. And I don't know if I'd have that same level of confidence if I would have come back out and got that mentorship that I received, my junior and senior year. And the Somerset coaches are very skilled in motivation. I can tell a couple stories real quick. My junior year, we were playing St. Croix Central. They had a tight end. He was 6'7". I don't remember his name. Ellers, I believe his name was. He was a big dude. And I was playing cornerback, and they were running it out. They got whistled off on an offsides, and Bob screamed at me, "They're gonna run it again." Okay, I'm ready for it. Well, he caught the ball and ran for about 70 yards down the sideline. I got to the sidelines. and I wasn't playing well that game, and grabbed me by my shoulder pads and shook the hell out of me. You're better than that. You're not in the game. I played better, and they knew how to motivate you. Some people that might take their head completely out of the game, and it helped me out dramatically.
Did we win?
We lost. But I can tell a story.
Your fault, Justin.
Yeah, I should have caught him.
You'll find somebody to blame.
Yeah, that was my fault. But I could tell a story that same year, first game of the year, we were losing to Durant. We were down by about 14 points at halftime. Went in the end zone, and Coach Nemec got up and gave one of his famous speeches. He's like, you know, most of your seniors and juniors, not long from now, some of you are gonna head off to college, and you're gonna sign up for classes. You're gonna take 101 math, or 101 science, or other courses. Well, you just got your first lesson, because that was ass kicking 101 in that first half. And you gonna let Duran kids go out there and put you through ass kicking 102 or not? We went out, we came back, and we won that game. So that was a good one. But adverse to building up confidence, by my senior year, I was playing better, and getting recognition for that. And I remember having a conversation with Bruce about that, and he goes, Justin, I've never seen a player go from really bad to mediocre so fast. He just had to build you up and keep you on the level, right? So those are things that I remember and I appreciate, and that type of confidence building, I'm going to use it with my children. So I thank you for that. That was my experience.
You played you were a defensive back in junior, weren't you? You come with Scott Junior. You played.
Yeah.
I had you. Your mother made the best cookies in town. Get in the film. You want to go first? Scott's older. Go ahead, Scott.
All right. Scott Nemec. I played from 98 to 99, or excuse me, 95 to 98. I look at all these accolades and all these awards and the footballs and everything else, and I'm embarrassed to admit that I don't know that I had a part in really any of them. I kind of rode the coattails of Freddie and Trent and Joe Green and some of those guys. Your senior year wasn't really on the team, just the freshman on JV, but nevertheless, still a fantastic experience. And when I think back on my experience with Somerset football, it's probably a little bit different than a lot of people. I've been involved in some respect in the program really since we moved here in '85. And I remember all the years and all the guys that have come through and played football. I remember the Troy Foxes and the Wayne Gillitzers and Chad Mox, and then I remember Grant Belisle and that whole era. I got to play with some of them. I remember the Rivard boys. I think there was like at least 47 Rivard boys that came through the program at some point in time. Talking about motivation, there was a unique characteristic that the coaches had to motivate, and one thing that really comes to mind for me was a practice that we had, and Drew Belisle was our center. And Drew was a little bit bigger, but kind of the gentle giant, a little bit more docile. I know they had a hard time getting him going. And so we were having a practice, and we were getting after it. And we went live in practice the vast majority of the time. And so they were trying to light a fire under Drew's ass. And they got in his face. And I don't remember if it was Pops here or if it was Bruce, but somebody grabbed Drew by that face mask, and they said, and he was lined up against Garrett, actually. And he said, I want you to pretend that Garrett just stole your last cookie. And so they got down over the ball and they got at it, and sure enough, Drew found a little extra level there. But the other things that I remember about the program growing up is just being involved, running around the practice field. Guys like Mick Fox, he's kind of like the Naomi Belisle of Somerset football. He just does everything, and you ask, he's there. He's taking pictures. He's videotaping. He's driving a bus. He used to be the bus driver. I remember riding in the equipment truck with Mick when we used to go to Kenyon, Wanamingo, like 6.5 hours away for a high school football game.
Who scheduled that?
Yeah, it's the athletics, whoever the athletics control was.
You're a former AD?
But really what's great about it is as you look around and you look and reflect back on all the individuals that have come through the program, everybody's kind of got different affinities. We're somewhat of a border town, so you've got Vikings fans, and you've got Packer fans, and you've got Gopher fans, and you've got Badger fans. But what's great about coming through a high school football program is you're always a Spartan, you're always a Spartan fan. And I'm now 16 years removed from my senior year, but I still find myself on Friday evenings or Saturday mornings, taking out the cell phone or jumping on the computer and just kind of scrolling through to see, hey, how'd Somerset do? And when they make these deep playoff runs, it seems like they do every year now. It sure is a lot of fun just kind of tracking along and just looking at how the program has grown and still feeling like you had some part in that, even if just a small role. You helped build on what exists today. It's pretty impressive. I remember the Killer Bees. Remember the Killer Bees? We had Brad, Bob, Bruce, and Bill, the coaching staff known as the Killer Bees. And then they threw Terry in there, and that kind of screwed that up. And then I think and then Paul came and screwed that up too. But
Fire Terry.
I do remember the Killer Bees. Yeah. Gar?
Well, we got Beau out there. Beau was.
Where's Beau? Beau, get in here.
You wanna talk or not, Beau?
Oh, yeah, I don't talk.
I spend most of my time watching him play anyways.
We were fortunate. Beau did get a 24-hour parole to come and share a few words.
I was up at the Pinewood Derby race up there.
How'd we do?
We have 3 firsts, 3 seconds, and a third. So,
Nice.
but the awards are about in 10 minutes.
So how long ago did you get here?
A minute.
Okay, so you know what's going on. So just who you are, a little bit about your experience, when you played, your experience.
Okay, I'm
And you got
Beau.
awards in 10 minutes, so.
I'm Beau Parnell. I played from, I guess, 96 to 99, 95 to 99. 98, I guess, yeah. That's
5
right.
years.
95, 98. Yeah, graduate 99, whatever it is. Brad Nemec was my head coach, and yeah, Larson and Seibel and all those guys. It was awesome. I don't know, what to say? I had a blast, and couldn't have had 3, 4, 5 of the best coaches there are in the state. So I don't know, it was awesome. Yeah.
I did end up playing in college, and it was very frustrating knowing that there wasn't one coach on the college team that could motivate or was as talented as your 3 high school football coaches. It was maddening, and we lost a lot of games in college because we got out-coached, and that just wouldn't have happened. That just didn't happen here. So it was a completely different experience that I had. So I echo what Beau was saying, and they're great, and that's that.
Yeah, my name is Garrett, Belisle. I played from 1996 to 2000. So Brad was head coach till my junior year, 99 or 98. And then Bruce Larson took over after that. So I played 1 year under him as head coach. And yeah, I played with these guys here. I was backup quarterback for most of those years. I did play quarterback my senior year then, and which was always kind of, as a backup, when you're not too confident with it, it was always a scary thought thinking, oh, what if Beau goes down one of these days, and then they're stuck with me. And then even worse than that, though, he was talking about Drew. Drew's my brother, and he was also the center, so there was some family bonding that would always happen. Like a double scary thought.
Go deep.
So yeah. But I don't know. When I think back to some of the games, I kind of had to look back at my yearbook to refresh my memory on some of these things. And there was a couple of big games that stood out to me, especially during my senior year when Bruce was the head coach. I remember we went down to Mondovi and we beat them on their homecoming, which was, I think at the time they were ranked 3rd in the state. And that was one game that stood out to me. And we ended up winning. We won 1 game in playoffs, and we ended up, I think we beat Clear Lake and then lost to Boysville here. And there's a couple of special games to me that really do stick out. But other than that, those aren't the memories that kind of stay with me. I think about all the other things. I mean, I could probably do the A-frame in my sleep, how much time I spent with Coach Seibel doing the riding the guy with the wishbone. So I did that so many times, and something I still wouldn't remember how to do. And
I've since been fired.
So, man, a lot of that, a lot of football tossing around, and it was fun. What was especially nice when I could watch all the other guys go and had to run through pads and hit everybody else. Well, the quarterbacks got to go over and just kind of dance around on the A-frame a little bit. But other than that, I remember it was kind of the years when the Bigger, Faster, Stronger was first getting implemented, and we were doing a lot more weight room work, a lot of summer work, and I, as a teacher now who's been in a couple of different school districts, and I see some of the weight rooms over the summertime, and how everybody's in there in June, and it's such a big thing, and you got the whole team in there, all the different sports. And then by July, it kind of fades out a little bit, and by August, there's only a few kids left over. And I remember that was the time, my junior, senior year, when we were doing Bigger, Faster, Stronger. We'd be out in the field up there, running up and down that hill a couple of times, and we'd come back in here, do weightlifting for another hour. And I mean, the numbers never really died down. I think, you look back and say, it's almost like you kind of see where this thing is going and how I can imagine now what they do in the summertime and how it's probably just as popular and kids have the commitment to it now that you don't see in other places. I've been in a couple schools, you don't see that. So that was always kind of something that stuck with me. And, that was when Larson used to call us into our office, a couple of senior guys come into his office during his class, and he'd talk leadership and kind of get into those things. And I see some of the signs around and some of the sayings and some of the things that we were hearing back then too. So it's kind of interesting to see that stuff carry on.
Here, you mentioned homecoming. Anybody got any special homecoming game that ever sits in their mind?
No comment.
I understand now the first half or first quarter, yeah.
Well, yeah, just Justin brought up about.
Should we show what they did? No, you can edit that.
That's staying in.
We used to have a tradition, I don't know, we didn't, but I inherited it for a while. And apparently it started out when I first got here, the girls went and toilet papered the football players' houses, and the football players went to cheerleaders' houses and toilet papered it. And that wasn't too bad. I remember the first Pep Fest I came to my very first year, when all of a sudden the football players come walking out with cutouts of the cheerleaders with some very, 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 we wouldn't show it, I'll tell you that, but had a lot of personal items that should have been home in their dressers, not out in the middle of a Pep Fest at school. But we worked on changing that real quick. And of course, that's okay, because the girls went in the boys. I couldn't believe parents would let boys go into their daughter's house in their bedroom alone, or moms would let girls go into their sons. But I'll tell you what, a lot of stuff was taken that week. Kind of like one of those college rushes in the spring or the fall of the year, where they do these raids or whatever they're called. But anyways, we finally told them, and it was okay, but what happened then, it started expanding. It wasn't just football cheerleaders, it went to every sport. I mean, Counter Foods and Holiday sold $42,000 of the toilet paper. You couldn't get it at Cup Food, because Cup Food is out. And that was okay until one year somebody, I don't remember what group it was, but one of the groups got smart. Oh, maybe it was Tanner Haynes' group, and his dad had a key for the janitor's closet, because he was the janitor. When about 15 cases of toilet paper got stolen from school. Well, it wasn't my problem, I didn't give them a key. But it got other kids, it wasn't the athletes. And one year they went and they took a bike rack and put it up on top of the roof and did a bunch of stuff on down on the as they decorated the school and all of our houses. Probably a highlight of my house when they took rolls of saran wrap and wrapped it around our house, we couldn't get out. Because the house was saran wrapped and wrapped and wrapped and wrapped and wrapped. But anyways, finally we just said, that's it. We took the kids by and said, that's it. I don't care what anybody else does, I care what the football players do. You will not. Now, letters went home from school all the time, but that doesn't mean anything. Parents get the point when they see Somerset School District, they just throw it away, because anything comes from the school district is always bad news. And we said, you will not walk around that school. Now, this is the first year, was that up here, Justin? Second year up here. Well, so all of a sudden, we have some toilet papers up here, up at this building, doing some toilet paper. And not only that, they would, and better yet, they knew we had cameras. And we had to try to sit back, well, whose rear end do you think that is? Who's that? Who's that? Well, it didn't take long to get through the sift through it, and we took 8 or 9 seniors and sat them out. And we're playing Colfax, what kind of, it was homecoming.
3 juniors.
Yeah, and a few of us.
3 juniors? One. I thought it was 2. Oh, was Celtic with you guys?
Leaders.
Yeah, captains. So we took the 8 seniors, and I said, you're not playing the first half. The good thing is, when we brought them in, I asked them a simple question, yes or no. The less time I spent on it, the quicker it was, the less punishment was. This is what happened, was you one of those people? I'm gonna find out. Yep, so they sat out the first half of the game. Well, then there were 3 other kids that snuck up here, and they were kinda smart, because they sat over on the baseball field over there, and just watched their leaders go and do this school. So they only sat out one series on that each. They were both offense and defense, all played offense and defense, so they sat out the first series. We're playing Colfax. Boom, 7-0. Boom, 14-0. Boom, 21-0. And now I know Justin's dad, Earl, would like to get a hold of me that night, along with a bunch of other parents standing on his sideline. And I knew the coach across the field, I know the Colfax coach really well. We went to school together, college. And he thought we'd change numbers. I mean, there's no way. We got no Beau, no Scott, no Justin, no Tanner, no can't think of some of them. You know, none of them. And they're, you know, so we're, of our 22 positions, the first couple series, Garrett probably the only one that played. Did you play that year? Yeah, probably the only one that played. So we've got literally 15 or 16 kids out there that never played a snap of play. Scott and Justin and Beau got to come in after one offense, after one defense. I said, hope to God he fumbled the first snap and get out there quicker. But anyways, we went out down at halftime, 21-0. Well, I walked by down the track by all those parents, and oh my gosh, I'm lucky I'm still alive today because they just, and it was nothing about teaching a lesson. It was nothing about what was said, what was expected. You know, you set your expectations, you know, and you always try to live with the philosophy. Don't say something, don't set something that you can't or won't enforce. Well, we did, we had to. Well, we came out in the second half, and all those kids all got to play with the jerseys back on them, that belonged on them, and what happened, Justin?
We won 22-21.
22-21. So, you know, it just, you know, and it's, I think that's what it's about. I think, you know, sports is about lessons, and you try to make them lifelong lessons. You know, I've coached the head coach for 25 years, and you know, maybe 20 some years, but just had great kids, coached some great kids run through here. And I'll tell you, some people don't understand. They just don't understand what it was and where it is. You know, Harry does, you know, Mr. Seibel does, you know, but, you know, Mike and some of you guys that are a little older, you might have an idea, some of those kids earlier, but, I mean, it was a great transition, great change by the kids. You know, and probably one of the biggest things, you know, I mean, I never believed in being good, I just believed in getting good people around you. And I had a great coach in Bob Seibel. You know, Bruce Larson was a great coach. Bill Powers was a good friend and a good golfer, so we kept him around because he was on the golf team. Bill Huber, I don't know why Bill Huber was here. I don't know why we had Cubby, because he was a bee. But, you know, we just did. And I think something, I don't know if a lot of people know, you know, if you want to go back on history of Somerset football, you always have what's called heir apparents. You know, and when I decided, I mean, I'll tell you what, it took a lot of wind out of my sails. We lost that game in 95 up at Hurley. It took a lot of my wind out of my sails. And I was kind of about ready to say, that's enough. That hurt. It hurt a lot. But we had a philosophy, you never cry during the season. You cry in the weight room in the off season. You know, so you just, you take it as a life lesson, like I said. You know, and so the next couple of years, I just, well, finally, my wife said, you will coach your son. You coach all these other kids, you're gonna coach through your son. I said, be better off without me, but she didn't believe me, now she would. You know, we did it, and when I finished up, when I was getting done, I went on talking to Bob Seibel. Bob had been here at that time probably 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
You know, and really should have been the next person to step up. Now, he had some medical problems. He had a real bad back. You know, there were many nights that we had to bring a car up on the field, put him in it, and get him home. A couple nights on the alley of the bus.
Was that for my back?
Well, I don't know. Sorry. But I mean, he had back problems and he had young kids. And I went out and talked to Bob because by rights, Bob should have been the next person to move up. He should have, if he wanted the job that I had, I mean, should have been the next head coach. By all rights, because he did a great job. There was no reason not to move him up. We went out, we had a long talk, we talked about it, he kicked it around, tossed it back and forth. And he asked me, he said, well, what do you think? He said, you know, what about Bruce? Bruce works like he works hard. And I said, well, and he said to me, he point blank said, he said, well, let me ask you a question. If you know what you know, and we both just came in and applied for the job, who would you hire? I said, you know, with everything going on right now, I said, the way you are, it's probably Bruce. He said, that's who the coach should be. He said, give that job to Bruce. You know, and if Bob had wanted it, he'd have been the next head coach. I don't know if he'd still be there today or not, I don't know. You know, and I'll tell you what, you know, Bruce got in there and there were a couple of years that he was shaking his head. You know, he had a couple spills before a couple tribulations, I guess, the best word. And of course, that's all been corrected. You know, so a lot of it was over to Bob Seibel to, you know, give up. That was a big sacrifice. But like I said, he had a really bad back. He had a couple of young kids that he just didn't know, and he just, so he made that sacrifice. You know, and we did what we thought was best. Him and I did what we thought was best for the next direction for us to take. So I think, a lot goes to, a lot of people don't know that story. It's the first time I really told much to anybody, but, you know, Bob, and it's a difference when when I see a lot of these kids here, like Scotty said, you know, Scott's not from Somerset, Garrett is, Justin is, Beau is, you know, Scott moved in. But, you know, when you're part of your life, you know, and you buy into it, and you have ownership in it, it's a lot easier to do things and have success. That's all I got. Harry, anything else? Huh?
That's it.
Okay, we're done.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I want to thank everybody for coming to this session. When some of those attitudes came, and I mentioned in my presentation there that the attitudes are changing. We used to have about 300 kids down in that other building. And if you walk the halls, there were all the seniors lined up the full hallway. There was nowhere to go. There was no classrooms. One of our players went to work for an hour in the morning, went to work all day, and came back and played football. There was nowhere to go. So that's where a lot of attitudes come. I remember going down the hall, and the kids come running out of the bathroom, all football players, and whoop. Here they threw a cherry bomb down the toilet, blew it up. Poor Oscar says, it was supposed to be the water, but it blew the whole thing up. We're lucky somebody didn't get killed. Another time I went down, I just followed the blood to the nurse to see who got hurt. But it was bad, and we lost them when I'm down there. They moved up here, and so it wasn't an easy decision just to say, so we heard Big Brad talk. And so then I went to junior high, and my only rule they gave me was, make sure they have fun. So I coached till 95 in the junior high, and poor Justin comes out, and he was right, he was a little guy. Go up to Webster, he breaks his arm. He's done. Poor Freddie. We go out, when he was in junior high, we had a good bunch of guys, Brett Kohler and Trent. Well, we don't have a field to practice on. The boss here said, this is my field, you stay off. I said, Brett, we haven't got a field, we're in they have never been on a field. So we got 20 minutes one night to go play on the field. Now we're going to the game, and these guys never played football before 7th grade, and they're screwing around all the way down. And I told them, you're gonna get a lesson, because Glenwood starts in 4th grade. Well, sure enough, when they did trips left, we had no idea. They beat the heck out of us. But, the next year, we were completely different. Where River Falls had a big group guy, we go down there, and they said, well, we only got 16 guys, but we'll play our first team the first half, then we'll play our second team the second half, and then we agreed to go an extra quarter against their subs. Well, halftime, we're tied. They put out their second team, we go about 35 yards in 3 plays, back come the first team. Get into extra innings, he must have had 60 guys, he set him off, because he's not gonna beat us. These guys are pretty good in 8th grade, and then they went on to be 11-1. So a lot of things changed when Mr. Nemec came, and we sure appreciate that you're here, and all you guys that bought into this program, and go in there and cut.
There you go. Good job, guys.
We need help putting these trophies back.